All right, looks like things have slowed down as people are coming in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Welcome today is all about the pitfalls of inaction, and also recognizing and responding to distractions. Really, honestly it is about decision making, though. Okay, truly, this is about decision making, and so um, hey, as a parent of two teens, decision making for me now, right, is different than it was 30 years ago. Okay, and so I'm sure that that is the same for you, as your perspective, I'm sure, has changed, as well as the lens through which you are seeing life. So, um, excuse me, again, you're all muted. Okay, and so I'll pause at various times as there may be some questions. So, um, let me go ahead and get started. Okay, so inaction itself, from for our for our I guess for what we're doing today, inaction simply is like not taking action in order to quote unquote solve a problem. So again, it's basically not acting to try to solve a problem. And so what that like looks like, and how that may be, is like, hey, some questions here. Like, what happens, for example, when your teen doesn't do their homework? Right. I start with something that's like cut and dry, maybe it's pretty clear. Like, what do you do? Right. That's really the question. Like, could it be something or nothing? How about their chores? Like, if they're not doing their chores, what do they do? So, in our house right now, now that my oldest son is off to college, the chores themselves, well, they remain the same. And so, who's doing what? That has changed. Okay, so again, these are two things. Hey, what happens when that your teen doesn't do their homework or their chores? Like, what do you do? What happens when you choose not to respond to them when this happens? Notice how I said choose. Wait. Do you respond most of the time? Um, is that something that's working for you? Like, why? Why are you responding? Right? If they didn't do their homework, oh my goodness, if their chores are not done, oh wow. I mean, I hate to say it like that. Yes, that's sarcastic, but like you're responding all the time. Why? Okay. Are you enabling them? Question, right? Are you enabling them? Okay, so that's just something to think about. Are you enabling them by basically, hey, you're reminding them to do their homework or reminding them to do their chores? Of course, the chores, I get it. If it's helping the family, I can understand a reminder. But again, once they leave you, are they going to get the constant reminder? So, are you holding them like accountable for things that the decisions that they're making, the choices that they've made? Are they being held accountable? Okay. And so ultimately, right, what are they actually learning by this? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. Okay. Chat about this a little bit. And again, because this is recorded, I like to make sure that I keep all of the conversations not recorded. And so they're offline, they're private. That way your business isn't kind of like put out there. So let me pause it here. Okay, so we talked a little bit about enabling and being held accountable, and it basically said that I would come back to that as we're going. So, and also I guess the homework piece, like what could it mean for you, or is it them? Who's basically the one that's truly impacted. So, those are the kind of conversations that we had leading into this next part. So who's in action are we talking about? Okay. So if your daughter didn't do their homework, okay, if she didn't do their homework, right? Who's in action are we talking about them? Okay. If your son doesn't do his chores, who's in action are we talking about? Well, it's actually yours. So I'm actually kind of leaning here. I'm gonna help you understand the idea of inaction and why inaction can be positive, and why, well, it has some negative connotations and consequences as well. So research has actually proven that nagging doesn't work. Now, please forgive me. I'm not going to quote that research right now, but helicopter parenting is not good. in the long run, right? And again, I use that word helicopter because it's kind of like you're hovering, but it's not going to work. It's not going to, in the long run, it's not going to prove fruitful for your family. So instead, set timelines. Okay, have boundaries. Like when you work together with your team, right? They need to be safe though, right? If they're going to fail, right? They need to know how, right? They're going to have to be safe. So they need to learn to be more autonomous, but in a safe place. Okay, so that idea of being accountable to both you and themselves, okay, is important. And so helping them do that is key. So it's okay for them to fail. Actually, they need to understand that they need to be able to fail, and that failure is a possibility. It is an option, right? So I mean, and I've said this before, like you can reward them for their efforts. Like if they, basically if they did really well in their mind, right? Their efforts were there, but man, at the end, it's like, wait, what the heck just happened? It can be tough for them. Yes, I understand. So you change the steps leading in, right? The work that they've done, um, in order for them to kind of keep the momentum going in a positive way. But again, it is okay to fail. I'll be honest with you. The Three Stooges, who I used to like back in the 80s, and I guess early 90s, maybe I was still a fan of Three Stooges. So Three Stooges used to say, if at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed. Now, I get it. Like, you don't want to say keep sucking, but as parents, we've got to understand that failure is an option. And I know that like people say failure is not an option. Well, it is in a specific task, maybe, or two specific tasks. But in the end, it should not necessarily be how things turn out. Okay. If the efforts that you put in continue, and you're still failing, you're got to change the effort. You got to change the mindset. And so, like, how are we supposed to know then, like, when to kind of get in, when to step in, maybe help them make a decision? Like, I'm the angry bird now. I'm the angry parent who's frustrated because my kid's not doing what they're supposed to do. When am I supposed to step in? Okay. And so, like, that emotional reaction in and of itself can be hard. Okay. Because you don't want them to fail in a so passionate way that they really are like soul crushing, like as a situation. But you need to know when to step in. So I know, like, when I put this up, you guys will be like, man, are you kidding me? But I'm gonna do it. Sorry. I apologize in advance. Like, right. So the question is, when should I step in? Right. And of course, here's Jack. If only there was enough room, right? So when should you step in? Okay. So um, things like self-harm, that is an opportunity for you to step in. Things that are when you see your child making decisions that are destructive for themselves or others, step in. Okay. And although I'm going to go over some surface level distractors, and how to figure out whether something is distraction and whether you need to step in, I'll also talk about some strategies, like what to do once you step in, and how to handle that. So again, if only there's enough room. So if Rose moved over, right, would there be enough room? Okay, would it have saved Jack? We don't know, right? That's the whole point of like this kind of scenario in the first place. Okay, but again, here we are. How do we know though if something is indeed a distraction in the first place? So for me, if you know your distractions, okay, you have to identify them first, right? If you're going to respond to them, you have to learn to identify them. And I will tell you that I myself, I know some of my distractions. Okay. But for me, I know it could be something that leads me off task. Okay. And that for me is huge. Okay. So a distraction could be just a thought, that thought that leads us off task. So in my line of thinking, okay, you are not responsible for the thoughts that come in you can determine and you can try to adjust based on your behaviors in reaction to those thoughts. Okay. Or you could choose to not think about that any further and modify your thoughts. And again, for me, as someone who is a proponent and studied, researched both cognitive behavioral therapy and REBT or rational emotive behavior therapy, really changing those negative thoughts, including limiting beliefs, really key. So an action that steers us in a direction that is not quote unquote in line with where we want to head. That's also a distraction. So it could be a thought, it could be an action. Okay, these are both things that are distractions. It could also be a feeling. Okay, that inhibits or slows us down from making decisions. Excuse me, that supports our, and I have quotes here, right? Planned pathway, because not everything is not going to always work out. Okay, but a distraction could be a feeling that it's not going to work out the way we want it. Okay, and just that feeling can be something that takes us off that path. Okay, in a moment I'll talk about the book that's on the right there, but essentially how we respond to our own distractions actually can help us respond to our teens. So the book that's there, Indistractable. I read this book, and I first I went to a webinar with the author of the book. I listened to him speak, and then I listened to it through Audible, and then I bought the book. Or actually, then I checked it out from the library, and then I actually bought it, highlighting the heck out of it because it was something that I really kind of took to. Now it has aspects for more adult behaviors and the way that it's set up. But for me, as my work with teens, who are, somewhat distractible, this was a really key book. And it kind of like was all about what you do with those thoughts and not necessarily your quote unquote time. It was kind of like, how can you deal with the thoughts and those distractions and then get back on track, so to speak. Okay. But by recognizing how you respond, excuse me, by recognizing your distraction in the first place or your triggers, okay, as we can call them, we can control our responses. And so I thought this book is really, really powerful. And he's got a couple of them near it all, but he's got a couple of them in the business world. Anyway, it's all about productivity. So there are three different thought strategies that I will help you understand. So the first one is begin to create a more hands-off approach, but remain active in your teen's life. Okay. And now I apologize. I see questions. Let me take time for a moment before I move further. Because I see some questions I didn't notice. I apologize. Let me pause it for pause recording here. And all right. So again, just really some questions. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but some of them certainly was about distractibility and ADHD, and I talked a little bit about that. But I will probably do another. I can't say another. I'll do a training on um, executive functioning and ADHD somewhere down the road. But for right now, let's stay here in the moment. I apologize for pausing it too late in the game there. But all right, so here we go. We're gonna be we're going to remain our teens' lives, but be a little bit more hands off. So what does that look like? Okay, so it may look like, well, the teens are testing our boundaries, so that's normal. Okay, so we have to recognize that, right? They're testing. So our responses to that, right? Is this a distraction, right? Them testing us? No, actually, most of that is natural, okay, as they fight for independence, right? But then also, distraction. Something that has to be said, though, is that they do, in fact, build resiliency through failure. So again, that opportunity and that idea of failure is only perhaps one or two tasks at a time, but you have to let them fail, right, now and again, instead of picking up those pieces for them. As a parent, instead, you have to first perhaps even pick it up with them and then building self-advocacy for them, let them ask you for specific help in trying to help themselves. And so that sense of autonomy that is then built creates perseverance. Okay. And that begins building more intrinsic motivation. And those are the motivators that come from inside, whether it be a good feeling or something that makes us feel proud, inside. Okay. And so that's what we shoot for. So I recognize, though, that it's hard, like, to see them struggle. It's hard to see them fail, but how we react to it will ultimately help them, right? If you do it right, right? That's the idea. It's hard for us to see them struggle. It's really hard for us to see them fail, but how we react to it, that's what's going to propel them to move forward in this arena. So this time I will pause it and get it right. So let me pause it now. Again, awesome comments, questions, and the idea of when how far down, so to speak, you want them to fall once they are in the process of failing. It doesn't necessarily mean, and this is why I'm addressing this to everybody here. The idea doesn't have to be that they get to their quote unquote rock bottom, right? But certainly, working with them to to kind of pick up their own pieces is important. And perhaps again, the first time, that you need to pick them up with them, and then you move on, right? But you don't want to do a whole lot of hand holding. Again, if they miss like 5 homework assignments, but you're just now knowing, you're just now finding out about it. Well, yeah, that is hands off, but it's not your education. It is theirs. I'm not saying you let them fail, but I'm also not saying that you give them everything that they want as a result. So, speaking of results here, some of us are here where we create these rules, these regulations. I'm saying you create them with your team, right? Just like the good old Constitution, we the people. Okay. I really am a proponent of kind of even going through chores. Like when I have chores, there's only 3 of us at home now. And so we all kind of pitch in to do chores that we didn't do necessarily before. Well, I did them, but that's only because I work from home most of the time. So for me to do those chores, okay. But now, we have 4 people's chores down to 3 people. Okay. But we created that chore list together. So the idea here is that you're going to improve your relationship with your team because you're communicating, right? You're communicating the rules and regulations are that you're going to put in place because you're working with them. You're not quote unquote laying down the law. Okay. This isn't Steven Seagal, when you're working on, right? That he was above the law. I think that was one of his movies or something like that. But like, you're not going to lay down the law. Okay. You're going to work with them to do that. There may be some finite, like, I'm not, this is a no-no. Like I can't, but you make that clear. Okay. And again, that may be something that they push. That might be a boundary, that they push, but that's something that has come up. Natural consequences, though, and follow through. Okay. Both sides, of course, they need to be consistent. Okay. So if the natural consequence of your daughter not doing her own laundry, if that's what is her responsibility, is that she stinks. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that is a natural consequence, right? And so a consequence socially because of that, you didn't do your laundry, you don't smell good, people are making fun of you. Now that right there, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is down the line. Eventually they have to make adjustments. Okay. And so that's something, I mean, I get it. Like that's potentially that, kids might do that. But again, if you're someone who's supposed to give them allowance and you're not following through, then that's a problem. I have, let's see here, on my desk, okay, we have there we go. We have a swear jar. And as you can hear, there's actual coins in there. Okay. So even though there's only 3 of us at home, we are adding to that jar. Hopefully not all that much, but we're adding to it nonetheless. Okay. But the idea is that is a consequence that we have agreed to. Okay. So we have one person in the house that, he's a little bit more of a sailor than we hope. And so natural consequence, boom, you know, Now that you cussed, right, I can't say it's an actual consequence. It's an actual consequence. 50 cents. Okay. So again, let me pause this real quick because there may be some questions. Nope, no questions that last time. That was pretty clear, I guess. So the last one here, again, practice what you're preaching. Okay, so again, these are, again, if you're looking to make decisions, you're making sure that you're not following along with these distractors. Okay, so you're practicing what you're preaching. What that might mean is that yes, you're a role model. Okay, undoubtedly, like you should be a role model in this and every other situation. Okay, so when you're arguing with someone, well, they are learning from you. If that's, especially if that someone is your team. Okay, so if the distraction, for example, that you think is a distraction, right? That you've agreed, social media is distraction, electronics is distraction. Then, if social media or electronics during family time, if that's a no-no for all of you, then you need to turn yours off too. Okay, and so that's something that's important. I know that my son likes to. He's like, oh, I'm just checking the time. I'm just checking the time. Okay, we're all like, there's only three of us. We're at dinner. I wear a watch. I mean, just ask. But again, it's still a distraction. Okay, and whatever it is, it could be pressing. So, what the reason why for me, the reason why this one right here is important is because if you're distracted and you're with your family, think about what your value system is at that moment, right? You're with your family. It's family time, but yet you're trying to answer an email or you're trying to think about the scheduling for the next swim meet, okay, or practice, or show. So again, think about that too, right? Again, practice what you're preaching. So if our teens are held accountable, right, for their chores, then you need to be held accountable too. Okay, so this is what, again, one of my chores, typically almost every day, is make dinner. Okay, except for Tuesday and Thursday when I'm in class. Right, those are the 2 days where my wife, and my son, that they make dinner. Right, and sometimes I even make dinner for them when I'm not, even though I'm going to class. Okay, but that's something where I'm like, okay, it's pretty clear, right? If I don't make dinner, then what do we eat? It's just like we're dialing it in. We're having cereal. Okay, I don't know. Okay, I'm not sure where it is for you, right? But if your family, if someone in the family is responsible for doing the dishes, we'll hold them accountable. Okay, so if we expect our teens to be level-headed and patient with us, then we need to do the same. And again, this circles back to the idea of healthy communication. Okay. And from my perspective, healthy communication takes making sure you're making the right decision at the right moment, with the right people. Okay. And so for me, that is important. Okay. So let me just pause this again and answer any questions. All right. So some good questions. And again, so where do you potentially go from here? Okay. All right. Well, the idea is that you kind of figure out where you are as a family, right? Are you closer to making decisions together, or are you closer to kind of trying to figure out how to hold each other accountable to make those decisions together, right? Are we kind of still, is there a power struggle at play, or are we kind of trying to make sure that we're on the same team? So as you figure that out, I will see you in our group. Thank you for joining me today. Those of you did, I appreciate it. Again, I have no business, nothing to sell here, right? But if you like what you see, feel free to contact me. Have a great day.